This is about Niruhabasti. अथा तो निरूहक्रमचिकित्सितं व्याख्यास्यामः यथोवाच भगवान्धन्वन्तरिः अथ अनुवासितम् आस्थापयेत् स्वभ्यक्त स्विन्न शरीरम् उत्सृष्ट बहिर्वेगम् आमवाते बहिर्वेगम् वाते शुचौ वेश्मने मध्याह्ने प्रस्थायां शय्याम् अधःसुपरिग्रहायां श्रोणिप्रदेशप्रतिव्यूढायाम् अनुपधानायां वामपार्श्वशायिनम् आकुञ्चितदक्षिणशक्तिम् इतरप्रसारितशक्तिं सुमनसं जीर्णान्नं वाग्यतं सुनिषण्णदेहं विदित्वा ततो वामपादस्य उपरि नेत्रं कृत्वा इतरपादाङ्गुष्ठाङ्गुलिभ्यां कर्णिकाम् उपरि निष्पीड्य सम्यक् पाणि कनिष्ठिक अनामिकाभ्यां वस्तैः मुखार्धं सङ्कोच्य मध्यम आप्रदेशिन्या अङ्गुष्ठैः अर्धं तद्विवृतास्यं कृत्वा बस्तौ औषधं प्रक्षिप्य दक्षिणहस्ते हस्ताङ्गुष्ठेन प्रदेशिनी मध्यमाभ्यां च अनुसिक्तम् अनायतम् अबुद्बुदम् असंख्याचितम् अमवातम् औषधम् आसन्नम् उपसंगृह्य पुनः उपरि तदितरेण गृहीत्वा दक्षिणेन अवसिञ्चेत् ततः सूत्रेणैव औषधान्ते द्विस्त्रैर्वा आवेश्य बध्नीयात् अथ दक्षिणेन उत्तानेन पाणिना बस्तिं गृहीत्वा वामहस्तं मध्यमाङ्गुलि प्रदेशिनीभ्यां नेत्रम् उपसंगृह्य अङ्गुष्ठेन नेत्रद्वारं पिधाय घृताभ्यक्त अग्रनेत्रं घृताक्तम् उपादाय प्रयच्छेत् अनुपृष्ठवंशं समम् उन्मुखम् आकर्णिकं नेत्रं प्रणिधत्स्व इति ब्रूयात्. Now the procedure of administering the asthapana basti is there are two aspects. One, the preparation of the basti and the instruments, and then the filling of the contents and procedure of administration. Another is the preparation of the patient. The preparation of the patient, the first of the thing is the patient has to be given anuvasana prior to the asthapana. Asthapana has to be given after the anuvasana. That's what we have discussed in the previous chapter also. And then a abhyanga has to be given, and svedana also has to be given, and ensure that the patient has passed the stools as such, and the whole procedure should be done in a clean room and preferably in the afternoon. And when the patient is having a well spread bed, patient has laid down on a well spread bed, and the patient should be lying down in such a way that the buttocks are seeming to be prominent. The legs have to be flexed, and it should be on the left side. The patient has to lie down on the left side with the buttocks looking more prominent, and the buttocks should not be covered with a cloth, and the right leg has to be flexed as such. Thigh has to be flexed, and the patient should have a pleasant feeling, and ensure that the patient has not consumed food much, like the food which is consumed earlier is digested, and should not speak too much, and should be comfortable. And in such a situation, you have to make the patient position. Then the next part is about the preparation of the basti. Unlike the present situation where we use a gravitational force at the container, so in Shuddha's period it was the bladder, a sac which is filled with the drug, and then the tube has to be connected to that. So you have to hold the bladder, and then bladder has to be filled with the medicine. To hold the bladder, it's better to hold with the left hand, and the opening has to be kept upwards. With the other hand, right hand, you have to fill in the drug acid, and when you fill in the drug, you have to ensure that there are no bubbles left over, and the bladder sac has to fill completely. Then that tube has to be connected, tied well with a thread, and then with the right hand, the tube has to be inserted into the anus of the patient, and the whole bag and the tube has to be kept in a horizontal position, almost in the same line as that of the vertebral column, and then gradually the sac has to be compressed. Sac has to be compressed with the right hand, ensuring that the contents of the drug would be flowing smoothly. This is about the procedure, preparation of the procedure. Of course, in the present day situation, most of the times, of course, in a few centers, they do still use similar instrument with maybe a rubber bag, But in majority of the situations, like in our setup, we usually prefer the gravitationally used pot, the enema pot, and hence in that situation the procedure would be slightly different. Of course, positioning of the patient is the same, but you will be holding that bag upwards, and the gravitational force will take care of the fluid to flow out. बस्तिं सव्य करे कृत्वा दक्षिणेन अवपीडयतु एकेनैव अवपीडनेन नद्धुतं न विलम्बितं ततो नेत्रम् अपनीय 30 मात्राः पीडनकालाद् उपेक्ष्य उत्तिष्ठ इत्यातुरं ब्रूयात् अथ आतुरम् उपवेशयेत् उत्कुटुकं बस्त्यागमनार्थं निरूह प्रत्यागमनकालस्तु मुहूर्तो भवति अनेन विधिना बस्तिं दद्यात् बस्तिविशारदः. Now after filling the anus, that compression has to be done preferably with the right hand, and it should be with a single compression, not too fast, not too slow. And then once the drug has entered into the anus, that tube has to be removed and wait for 30 matra kalas, 30 seconds. During this period, the patient has to just sit normally. Then once this procedure is done, then the patient has to be set in a squatting position to facilitate the drug which has gone in to come out. The maximum time taken for the drug to come out would be 1 muhurta kala. That's around something like 40 to 45 minutes. That's the time should be taken for the drug to come out. And if it is necessary, second, third or fourth basti also can be given in the same manner. Samyak Nirudhalinge to Prapte Bastim Nimare. Once the patient has all the clinical signs of Samyak Nirudha Lakshana, that's the clinical outcome is on the expected lines, the basti has to be stopped. Visheshat Sukumaranam Hina Eva Kramohita, Api Hina Kram Kuriyat Nakuriyat Kramam. In the patients who are delicate, it's better to reduce the quantity of the basti, or even the number of basti also can be reduced. And it's always better to be on the lower side of the optimum than going beyond the upper limit, because that excess of basti given in terms of both quantity of the drug given as well as the number of basti given will be more harmful than a real underperformance, and hence it's always better to be on the lower side. यस्य स्यात् बस्तिः अल्पो अल्पवेगो हीनमलानिलः दुर्निरेढः विज्ञेयः मूत्रार्ति अरुचि जाड्यवान्. When after the basti, if it doesn't come out easily or slowly it comes out, or it comes out along with the feces as well as the gas, that's the sign of durnirodha, improper basti administration. And such patients may even have pain during the micturition, indigestion, or just heaviness, maybe feeling illness feeling would be there. यान्येव प्राणमयोक्तानि लिंगानि अतिविरेचिते तान्येव अतिनिरूढेपि विज्ञेयानि विपश्चिता. अतिनिरूढ लक्षण, if it is given in excess, the same lakshanas as that of the ativirechana, like the signs of dehydration, pain, and then even the raktadana, jivadana, that the bleeding also can occur if the basti is given in excess. Yasya kramena gachanti vitpitta kapha vayavaha Laghavam Chopajayeta, Sunirudam Tam Adisheta. Those patients where the patient passes the stools, then the pitta, the bile contents, then some mucin-like contents, and the patient would feel the lightness. That's considered as the Samyak Nirudha Lakshana, the proper signs of basti administration. Sunirudham Tato Jantum Snatamantam to Bhojeta. पित्तश्लेष्म अनिलाविष्टं क्षीर यूषरसैक्रम्यात् सर्वं वा जाङ्गलरसैः भोजयेत् अविकारिभिः त्रिभागहीनम् अर्धं वा हीनमात्रं अथापि वा यथा अग्निदोषं मात्रा एवं भोजनस्य विधीयते अनन्तरं ततो युञ्जात् यथा स्वं स्नेहबस्तिना. After the Niruhabasti, patient has to be given a bath, has to take bath, and the patient has to be given some liquid food. Liquid could be either kshira, that's milk, or yusha, the mamsara, any preparation, ganji-like preparation, or mamsarasa, depending upon the dosha. In pitta dosha, it is the milk which is preferred. In kapha dosha, it is the yusha which is preferred, and in the vata vyadhi, mamsarasa is preferred. And if the mamsarasa has to be given, it should be jangala mamsarasa has to be given which doesn't harm the patient. And the quantity should be either 1/3 of the expected quantity of the food intake of the patient, average food intake of the patient, or it could be half of the average food intake of the patient, and it should be less than that, not more than that. Or the quantity could be decided based upon the Agni Bala, that capacity of the patient to digest. And after this, the patient has to be given a Snehabasti, a Snigdhabasti has to be given. Viviktata, Manastustihi, Snigdhata, Vyathigraha, Asthapana Snehabasti, Samyak Dhanek Lakshanam. When the combination of these Asthapana Basti and Snehabasti are given, the patient would have a pleasant feeling, the proper activity, and a feeling of that Snigdhata, smoothness in the body would be felt. Now, the question is whether Asthapana and Niruhabasti can be given on the same day or not. As per the text, it has to be given on the same day. After the Niruha, the Asthapana Basti has to be given, or Sneha Basti has to be given. But practically, most of the times what happens is when you give these two Bastis together, many of the patients may not tolerate, and hence we generally adopt the other way. We give Niruhabasti on one day, the next day Snehabasti is given. Snehabasti and Niruhabasti generally is not combined together because it becomes more acceptable and more comfortable to the patient than the other way. Of course, textually it should be given on the same day. तदः तस्य पवनाद्वयं बलवदीश्यते रसौदनः तेन शस्तः तदहश्च अनुवासनम्. Because the patient may have a problem or complication of Vata Prakopa, the patient has to be given a light food, easily digestible rice food, and then in the later part of the day, Anuvasana Basti has to be given. Paschad Agnibalam Matva Pavanasya Chestidam Annopastambite Koste Snehambasti Vidiyate Anayantam Muhurtattu Niruham Shodhane Haret Tishne Niruhi Pratiman Ksharam Mutra Ambasayutehi. Now, after the before you give the Snehabasti, you have to see that the patient has a proper digestive capacity and the Vata should be proper, Vata functions proper, and only when the patient has consumed the food, the Snehabasti has to be given as such. If the Niruhabasti doesn't come out by itself, then you may have to give a Shodhana Basti and or a Tishna, another Tishna Niruhabasti has to be given, which contains Kshara, Mutra, Amla, etc. Vigunanda Vistabdham Chiram Tishtan Niruhanam Shula Arati Jvara Anahat Maranam Va Pravartayeta. If the Basti doesn't come out for a long duration, then it can produce pain, discomfort, Jvara, or distension of the abdomen, or even death can occur. Now, with the Niruhabasti, when the quantity given is like 200 ml, chances of retention of Basti Dravya is very low. And such chances, such complications, I have not come across any such complication where it has been retained for a long duration and complications have occurred. Because most of the times it gets expelled out easily. By chance, if at all it's retained, then it's better to give another Basti. Natu Puttavadanteyam Asthapanam iti sthitihi Vishuchika Janaye Chhardim Vapi Sudarnam Upayat Saradesh Doshan Vatasma Dadyar Abhodine. Now, a Asthapana Basti has to be given in a patient who has not consumed any food, in the empty stomach, because after consuming of the food, if you give the Basti, it can produce a Vishuchika or Chardi, Omana, or Vilechana, like complications, diarrhea or vomiting could occur. जीर्णान्नस्य आशये दोषाः पुंसः प्रव्यक्तिमागताः निशेषाः स्वम् आयाति भोजनेन अप्रपीडिताः नव आस्थापनवीक्षिप्तम् अन्नम् अग्निः प्रधावति तस्मात् आस्थापनं देहं निराहाराय जाता. The reasons given are again the same. In a patient who has a proper digestion of the food and the stomach is empty, the Basti given would be easily reaching to the target area and produces comfort to the patient as such. And if there is food in the abdomen and the digestive power is directed towards the digestion of the food, the Asthapana Basti, that Basti which you have given, may cross over and go into the more proximal area and produce the complications. Avastikam kramam api buddha karyam nirohanam male apadrishte doshanam balavatvam na vidiyate. Then depending upon the patient's status, you may modify these procedures. slightly, but the target is ensure that the all that defective contents, the vitiated contents are removed from the body, and considering the dosha status as such. Quantity of the basti, contents of the basti can be modified depending upon the conditions. Now, the usual substances which are used in the preparation of the basti are kshirani, amlani, mudrani, snehaha, kvataha, rasastata, लवणानि फलं क्षौद्रं शताह्वा सर्षपं वच येल त्रिकटुकं रास्ना सरलो देवदारुच रजनी मधुकं हिंगु कुष्ठं संशोधनानि च कटुका शर्करा मुस्तं उशीरं चन्दनं शठी मञ्जिष्ठा मदनं चण्डा त्रायमाणा रसाञ्जनं बिल्वमध्यं यवानी च फलिनी शक्रजाः यवाः काकोली क्षीरकाकोली जीवक ऋषभगौ उभौ तथा मेधा महामेधा ऋद्धिः वृद्धिः मधुलिका निरूहेषु तालाभं वेषवर्गो विधीयते. The commonly used drugs in the Niruhabasti are these categories which have all the properties, like some of them are kapahara, some of them are batahara, some of them are pittahara, and some of them have madhura rasa, some have katuka rasa, some have tikta rasa, so on. So depending upon the conditions, the selection of the drugs are done, and the general common list of the drugs which are used are given by Sushra at this stage. Swasthe Kvatasya. Now, how to prepare the basti? Preparation of the basti depending upon the indications. Swasthe, in a healthy person, Kvatasya Chatvaro Bhagaha, Snehasya Panchamaha, Krudhe Aniloya Chaturthastu, Shastraha Pitte Kapo Ashtamaha, Sarveshu Astamo Bhagah Kalkanam Lavanam Punaha, क्षौद्रम मूत्रम फलम क्षीरम अम्लम मांसरसम तथा युक्त्या प्रकल्पे धीमा निरूहे. Now, in the healthy person, if you give the basti, then the 4 times the total quantity, the 4 times would be, if you have 4 units of kvata, the 1/5 of that would be snehasam, oily substance, or depending upon the condition. If the patient has a vata prakopa lakshanas, it could be 1/4. If it is a pitta lakshana, 1/6, or kapha lakshana, 1/8 of the quantity. Or if you are not bothered, 1/5 of the kvata should be given the taila or ghrita. And 1/8 of that would be kalka or lavana. Kalka and lavana have to be added. Then kshaudra, mutra, or kshira, amla, etc. other juices could be added depending upon the condition of the patient, based upon your experience. Kalpanatviyam, kalka sneha kashayanam avivekadbhishakurehi baslehe sukalpana prokta prasidanam yathartakata. The essential contents of the preparation of a basti would be kalka, sneha, kashaya. These have to be very clearly identified, and they have to be properly added and mixed. If they are not properly mixed, and a uniform form of the substance has come out, it should be very soft and somewhat foamy like substance, slimy substance should be produced. And to get that, the typical procedure of preparation would be essential. दत्वा आदौ सैन्दवस्य अक्षं मधुना प्रसृतद्वयं पात्रे तलेन मथ्य तद्वत् स्नेहं शनैः शनैः सम्यक् सुमथिते दद्यात् फलकल्कम् अतः परं तथा यथोचितान् कल्कान् भागैः स्वैः श्लक्ष्णपेशितान् गम्भीरे भाजने अन्यस्मिन् मथ्य तं खजेन च यथा वा साधुमन्येत न सान्द्रो न तनुस्समः रस क्षीर अम्लमूत्राणां दोषावस्थाम् अवेक्षतु कषायः प्रसृतान् पञ्चसुभूतान् सत्र दापयेत्. To prepare the basti, the protocol has to be followed step by step. The first is the labana, saindhava and madhu has to be added together. 1 tala of the saindhava and 1 prasrita of madhu, honey has to be added. Then it has to be mixed. Now, if you do not follow this procedure, suppose this sequence is altered, then preparation of the basti would not be proper. All the substances would not be dissolved. You will have some sediments left over. A well-prepared basti would not have any sediments. Now, to have that kind, this protocol has to be followed rigidly. The first it has to be saindhava lavana, then the madhu, it has to be mixed well, and then after this mixture, it's well curdled, then add sneha, some oil, sneha dravya, oil has to be added step by step, gradually, and only after it has emulsified, there is a proper emulsification of the oil with that salt and this madhu, then the kalka has to be added, and then it has to be emulsified again. Now of course we do use the mixes now, but even otherwise, if it has to be handheld instrument, that the procedure has to follow. Even with the mixes, if you do not follow this procedure step by step, that initially honey and the salt is mixed, then the oil is added, then the kalka is added, then the kashaya is added. If you do not follow this, a proper emulsification will not occur. So proper emulsification is important. And after having this, you have to take a bigger vessel and then add the kashayas in such a way that it doesn't become too thick or too thin. The turbidity should be, or the stickiness should be properly felt, and it should not be too thin, too thick as such. Atha urdhvam dvadasha prasadaन् vakshamah. Now the procedure of dvadasha prasada, that where the quantity is 12 prasadas. Datva adhau saindavasya aksham madhuna prasati dvayam. So in a dvadasha prasada, madhu quantity has to be increased. Saindava is 1 and madhu 2 prasadas. Milirmatya tadadhyata snehasya prasati trayam. 3 prasadas of taila has to be added. Ekibhutya tada sneh kalkasya prasatim kshapeta. 1 prasada of the kalka has to be added. Sammurtre kashayam tu chatu prasarisamidam. 4 prasada of the prasada is a handheld. That's around 100 ml. Has to be added. Kashaya has to be added. Then vitarecha tada avapam ante viprasatolmidam. Then any other avapa, like either kshira or any other avapa, kalka, kshara has to be added, about 2 prasada. Evam prakripitovasti dvadasha prasada bhaveta. The ratio of the substances to be used in dvadasha prasada are the salt, if it is 1, then madhu 2 units, and the sneha has to be 3 units, 4 units of kashaya, and the 2 prasada of any other powder, churnas, which can be added later. Jyeshtayaha khalu matrayaha pramanam idamiritam apahrasetu bishakkuriyat tadvata prasratihapanam yatha vayo niruhanam kalpana iyamudahata saindhavati tavvantanam siddhihi kamehi bishakvayehi. The quantity of any of these can be reduced or increased depending upon the condition, and the maximum is whatever is mentioned as such, the 1 prasada, 2 prasadas. You may reduce the quantity depending upon the patient's condition, but the ratio has to be maintained, that 1:3:4 then 2 as such would be maintained. That ratio has to be maintained. Atha urdhvam prakshante pastayatra vibhakashah yatha dosham prayuktaha hanihu nanavidhan gadanna. Some of the examples of the basti, depending upon the dosha, are mentioned, where the contents could be added or modified. The kashaya contents could be added or modified, and these are Shampaka, Urubu, Varshabhu, Vajigandha, Anisha, Chadehi, Panchamuli, Bala, Rasna, Buruchi, Suradarubihi, Kochitehi, Palikehi, Madana, Astaka Sanyutehi, Kalkehi, Magadika, Ampoda, Pusha, Missisindvehi, Vatsahvaya, Priyangu, Ugra is Vacha, Yashtya, Mudhyashti, Rasanjanihi, Dadyat Asthapanam Kostam Kshaudrambihi Api Samskritam Prastha Guru Trika Shula Ashma Vinmutra Anilasangina Grahani Maruta Shobham Raktam Hamsabala Pradam. For the patients who have pain in the buttocks, or the patient who have irregular bowel movements, or Grahani Vyadhi, or Arshas, or where the Mamsa and Rakta has to be strengthened, this yoga is used, Shampaku, Rubu, etc. The contents would be used. Then similarly, Guduchi, Trifala, Rasna, Dashamula, Balapalehi, Patitehi, Stratapiste, Priyangu, Khanasaindavehi, Shatapushpa, Vacha, Krishna, Yavani, Krishna Bilodehi, Sabudehi, Akshamatrestu, Madana, Arthapalanvidehi, Kshaudra Taila, Gazakshira, Shukta, Kanjikamastubihi, Samalodhya Mutrena, Dadyat, Asthapanam, Para, Pejo, Varna, Bala, Utsaha, Viryadmi, Pranavardhanam, Sarvamartharogam, Vayasthapanam, Tamam, another Vayasthapanam Bastya, to facilitate the Rasayana and to increase the general condition of the patient. A yoga is mentioned where Guduchi, Tripala, etc. are prepared. Kushadi Panchamulabda, Trifala, Utpala Vasakehi, Sariva, Ushira Manjista, Rasna, Renu Parushkehi, पालिकैः क्वचिते सम्यक् द्रव्यैः एभिश्च पेशिलैः शृङ्गाटक आत्मगुप्ता इभ केसर अगुरुचन्दनैः विगारी मिसि मञ्जिष्ठा श्यामा इन्द्रयवसिन्धुजैः फलपद्मकयष्ट्याह्वैः क्षौद्रक्षीरगताप्लुतैः दत्तम् आस्थापनं शीतम् अम्लहीनैः तथा द्रवैः दाह असृग्धर पित्तासृग् पित्तगुल्मज्वराञ्जयेत. For the pittaja vyadhi, where the patient would have burning sensation or maybe metrorrhagia or the Ratha Pitta conditions, this Kusharipajamula Siddha Basti can be given. Rodra Chandana Manjishta Rasna Ananta Balarudhibihi Sariva Vrusha Kashmiriya Meda Madhupapadmakehi Stiradi Trinamulesha Kvata Kashatrayon Videhi Pistehi Jivaka Kakoli Yugarthi Madhukotpalehi प्रपोंडरिका जीवंती मेघा रेणु परुषकैः अभीरु मिसि सिन्धुक्ता वत्सक बुशीर पद्मकैः कसेरु शर्करायुक्तैः सर्पिर्मधुपयप्लुतैः द्रव्यैः तीक्ष्णाम्लवर्ज्यैश्च दत्तो बस्तिशुशीतलः गुल्म असृक्धर हृत्पाण्डुरोगान् सविषमज्वरान् असृक्पित्त अतिसारोजहिन्या पित्तकृतान् गदान्. In the diseases like gulba, rakta, asೃಕ್ಧರ, raktapragara or hridroga, panduroga, or patient who have vishamajvara, these rodradi dravya, rodradi group of drugs are given for the treatment of pittaja vyadhis. Bhadra, Nimba, Kulatha, Arka, Koshataki, Amritamaraihi, Sariva, Brihati, Patha, Murva, Arabhuda Vatsakehi, Pataha, Kalkastu Kartavya Vaja, Madana Sarshipehi, Saindava, Amarakustha, Ela, Pipani, Bilvanagarehi, Katataila, Madhu, Kshara, Mutrataila, Amlasahitehi, Karyam, Astapanam, Turnam, Kamala, Padumehinam, Medasvinam, Anagninam, Kaparoga, Ashanadvisham, Galaganda, Galaglani, Shlipada Udara Rogina, in the patients who have Kamala or Panduroga, or maybe those who have more of Medodhatu, or those who do not have a digestive capacity, those who have Kapha Vyadhis, Galaganda, etc. In such conditions, the yoga mentioned here, where Bhadranimba Kulatha are used. Dashamuli Nisha Bilva Patola Trifalamare Kochide Kalkapishtes to Mr. Sendhavadarubi Patha Magadika Indrahvihi Tailakshara Madhuplutehi Kuryad Asaranam Samyak Mutramla Prayajehi Kafa Pandu Guda Alasya Mutra Martha Sanginam Ama Atopa Paji Apaji Shleshma Gulma Krimi Vikarinam. Yadashamula Siddha Basti, where it can be used for Kapaja Vyadhi or Gulma, Visha, etc. वृष अश्म भेद वर्षा भूधान्य गंधवर हस्तकैः दशमूल बलाम्ब यवकोल निशाक्षदैः कुलत्थ बिल्लो भूनिम्बैः क्वचितैः फलसंयुतैः कल्कैः मदन यश्चाह्वा षड्ग्रन्थ अमरसर्षपैः पिप्पली मूलसिन्धुत्व यवानी मिसि वत्सकैः क्षौद्र इक्षु क्षीर गोमूत्र सर्पिस्तैलरसाप्लुतैः तूर्णम् आस्थापनं कार्यं संसृष्ट भोगिनां गृध्रसी शर्करा अस्थीला Tuni, Gulmagadapaham, patients who have conditions like Gridhrasi, Sharkara, or the Mutra Vyadhi, the Asthavana Yoga would be the same which is mentioned by Sushruta here. Of course, whatever we give as the Dashamula Niruhabasti, majority of the contents, there is a slight modification in the Dashamula Niruhabasti. Some of the contents are reduced, but majority of the contents which we use in the Dashamula Niruhabasti are similar to this yoga. Rasna Arabada Varsha Bhu Katuka Ushira Barivehi Trayamana Amrita Rakta Panchamuli Vibhitakehi Sabalehi Palikehi Kwataha Kalkastu Madanyadehi Yastyahva Misi Sindhukta Padini Indrayavapehi Rasanjana Rasakshodra Draksha Savira Sayutehi Yukto Bastihi Sukosnoyam Mansa Shukra Balojasam Aisho Agnisha Samskarta Hanti Chashugadaniman Gulma Asriddhara Visarpa Mutra Kshakshatakshayana Vishamajjuram Ashramsi Grahanim Matakundalim Janu Jangha Shirogasti Graha Udavartamartana Vatasraga Sharkara Asthila Kukshi Shula Udara Arutihi Raktapita Kapan Unmada Prameha Agmana Dahana. Another of the yoga which is mentioned here, which is used for a large number of diseases, which is also a rasayana. And it helps in managing the diseases of various parts of the body. The important is the contents of the kashaya and the kalka are modified depending upon the patient's condition, and then it can be used for any of the disease conditions. But the Saindhava Lavana, madhu and sneha, these are the essential contents. Ratio of these could be modified according to the doshas. So bastis, number of bastis or varieties of basti can be innumerable. The general rule is वातग्न औषध निष्पाताः सैन्धव त्रिवृतायुधाः साम्लाः सुकोष्णानि योज्याः स्युबस्ते स्कुपिते in वातज व्याधि वातग्न औषधिक्वाता and saindava and trivrta also can be trivrta sneha, trivrta sneha can be used, and some amla rasa has to be added, which is used for vataja vyadhi. So general rule is the same. Vataja vyadhi, it should be any of these contents. Sushruta has given some examples. You may modify, you may administer any of the other drugs also which have vatagna property in a case of vata, but the other contents are, the sneha should be more, trivrta sneha has to be given, or quantity of the sneha dravya should be more, and there should be some amla rasa, and it should be given warm. Nekrodhadi ganakvataha kakodyadi samayamtaha videya baste pitte sasaf ishkaha sashartaraha. In case of pittaja vyadi, nekrodhadi ganakvata or any other kakodyadi gana or any other pitta har dravya can be added, but there should be ghee and sharkara, some sweet sugar has to be added, should be given in cool conditions. आरभोधादि निष्पाताः पिपल्यादि समायुक्ताः सक्षौद्रमूत्राः देयाः स्युः वस्त्रे कुपिते कफे. In a kapaja vyadi, आरभोधादिगण or पिपल्यादिगण or any other kapahara dravya can be added, and should have shaudra and mutra, honey, and the urine has to be, cow's urine has to be given, and should be given warm. शर्करा युक्षरस क्षीर घृतयुक्ताः सुशीतलाः क्षीर वृक्षकषायाढ्याः बस्ते शोभितेलाः. In रक्तज व्याधि, it should be sharkara, sugar, ikshurasa, sugar cane juice, milk, ghrita, ghee, and very cold क्षीर वृक्ष kashayas are to be given. So the contents can be modified according to the condition of the patient. The general rule is the same. Now, by modifying the contents, the targets of the basti and their classification also can be modified. If you have to have a shodhana, dosha shodhana, then shodhana dravya nishpataha tatkalka sneha saindavya yukta khajena matita pastaya shodhana smraha. When you have some shodhana dravya, tikshna dravyas added to the basti, and the target is for the shodhana, you may have a shodhana, you may call it as shodhana basti. When it contains tripala, kvata, gomutra, kshaudra, kshara samayitaha, ushakadi prativapaha, bastaya lekhana smraha. Trikatu is added as a prativapa, and kshara, kshaudra are added, that's called as a lekhana basti, which will curate out the kapha contents, mucin contents. Brahmana dravya nishkwataha kalkehi mudurkehi laha sarpi mansarasopeta bastayo brahmana smraha. For the targeting the brahmana and the anabolic activity, brahmana dravya have to be added, and madhura dravya has to be added as a kalka, and mansarasa can be given. Chataka anda uchchata kvataha sakshira krishakaraha atmagupta palavapaha smraha bhajikarana. For bhajikarana purposes, you may use the eggs or uchchata kvata, kshira ghrita had to be added, atmagupta phala, nasaguni seeds also can be added. Badari, Yeravati, Shelu, Sharmadi, Dhandanapuri, Kshirasiddha, Kshabrita, Sasraha, Pichila Samnitaha, Varaha, Mahisha, Aurabra, Bidari, Lavanai, Kaputam, Sadhyaskam, Asridajamma, Deyam, Pichilabastishu. Pichilabasti or Pithabasti given in case of irritable conditions like that. Badari, Airavati, Shelu, Kashaya Dravyasa, these tender leaves are used, and then for the preparation of the kalka, and then kshira has to be added, shaudra has to be added. Some element of blood also can be added, and then usually the blood which is added could be varaha, mahisha, aurabra, vairala, yenayaka, kautam, sadhyaskam, asagajam. The fresh blood of any of these animals could be added to the basti, that also becomes a pichila basti. Then Priyangvadi ganakvataha ambastadhyena sayutaha sakshodraha sagasashtiva grahino bastayasmraha. A grahi basti can be prepared with kashaya rasudravya like a Priyangvadi gana or ambastadi gana. Yateshvu yogeshu sneha siddhaha pradaka samasteshu athava samyak vidheyaha sneha bastayaha. A sneha basti can be prepared by adding any of the other prepared sneha. Sneha dravya, it could be like Indukanta Grita or this Kalagrita and so on. The prepared snehas could be added, then it becomes a sneha basti. वन्द्यानां शतपाकेन शोधितानां यथाक्रमं बलातैलेन देयस्सु बस्तत्रैवर्तेन वा. For the impotency, the basti which should be given could be impotency of women. Shatapaka Balataila is most preferable with the Trivrta Grta. Trivrta Sneha is the one. Narasya Uttama Sattvasya Tiksham Bastim Nidhapayetu Madhyama Madhyasatvasya Viparitasya Vayam Mridun. If the person is very physically strong, in such conditions, Tishna Basti is preferred. If the physically weak, then Mridu Basti is preferred. That the content will be Mridu Dravya, Tishna Dravya are not to be added. Depending upon the strength of the patient, the Basti contents can be modified. And you may classify them as a Tishna Basti, Mridu Basti or Madhyam Basti. Evam kalam balam dosham vikaram cha vikaram ita basti dravya balam chaiva viksha bastiin prajoyate. So a basti can become an elaborate and widespread mode of treatment depending upon your ability to assess the condition and modify the contents. Dadyat utkleshanam purvam madhye doshaharam panaha paschat samshaniyam cha dadyat basti vichakshanaha. If at all you have to give a course of basti, then the initial should be which produces the utklesha of dosha, which makes the shodhana bastis are the preferred one. Then the next is the shodhana basti. So initially the basti which would produce a dosha utklesha, snigdha and ushna dravya are to be added. Then for doshana katu and lavana amla rasa dravya have to be added. Then samshamaniya. Next is the samshamana where madhura kashaya tikta rasa dravya have to be added to have a full course of the basti. As in any other shodhana, that initial dosha utkleshana, dosha harana, then samshamana. Eranda bijam madhukam pipali saindava maja hapusha phalakalkascha basti utkleshana smradaha. For the utkleshana basti, the example given is Eranda bija madhuka pipali is considered as a utkleshana basti. Shatafa madhukam bijam kautajam phalameva sakanjika sagumutro basti doshara smradaha. Doshara basti, kanjika and gommutra are added. It becomes doshara basti with the shatafa madhuka etc. Priyanguhu madhukam mustat devaja rasanjanam sakshira shade basti dosharam shamana paraha. The madhura rasa or kashaya rasa dravyas added would be shamana. These are the examples of the utkleshana, shahara and shamana basti. Need not be limited to only these contents. These contents can be still modified depending upon the conditions, but a combination of these would be followed to give a better results. Nripanam tapsamananam tata smahakamapi narinam sukumaranam shishusthavirayorapi dosha nidharanarthaya balavarna udayaya cha samasena upadekshami vidhanam madhutailikam yanastri bhojyapaneshu niyamaschatranochate phalam cha vipulam drishtam vyapadam jatpyapasambhavah yadyastu atas sukhenaiva niruha kramam ichata yada ichhati tadevesha prayoktavyo vipashita. Now, a general basti which can be given in all persons as a tonic, which enhances the strength of the person, particularly kings or king-like persons or ladies who are not really capable of otherwise doing rigorous work, or children or in old age, or those who are emaciated, to facilitate their, which is to be given easily. That's a Madhu Tailika Basti is one. Madhu and Taila are the major contents of this. That the preparation of the Madhutailika Basti is Madhutaila Sameksha Syatam Katashti Erandamurajaha Paladham Shatapushpayaha Tato Ardham Saindavasyaja Palena Ekena Sayuktam Khajena Jabiloditaha Deyas Koshno Pishaja Madhutailika Sanditaha. Madhutailika Basti is a very typical where you have Madhu and Taila in the equal quantities, and Eranda Kata is added, Shatapushpa or Saindava is added further. And this could be given as a warm basti, that's a Madhutailika basti, which is suitable for all and a general tonic like basti. Vacha Madhukatailam Chakpatha Saresa Sendavaha Pipali Palasa Yukto Basti Yuktaratha Smritaha. A Yuktaratha basti, of course, in general is considered like a basti which can be given in any person during any activity, during his movement also Yuktaratha, with the idea like even a person who is traveling can take this basti. And the contents which are suggested by Sushruta, there is a slight difference of opinion between these contents of Bhupasti in Sushruta and the later textbooks like Sharpadara. Anyway, in Sushruta, Vacha Madhukatailam, Vacha and Madhukataila with the Saindhava and Mansarasa, Pippali Phala are added, that's a Uttara Basti. सुरदारु वर रासना शतपुष्प वचा मधु हिंगु सैंधव संयुक्तो बस्ति दोषाः स्मृतः. Another of doshahara basti or shodhana basti is same where devadaru, rasna etc. are added. Panchamuli kashayam trailam magadika madhu basti resha vidhatavya sashatvaha satsaindavaha. Another of the doshahara basti is panchamuli kashaya magadika etc. Yavakola kulaptanam patho magadika madhu sasaindava saheshyaha siddhavasti ridismritaha. Another siddhavasti which is used for facilitating the normal activities of the body, enhancing the strength of the body, something like your tonic, where Yava Kola Kulata Kwata with the Magadika, that Pipadi is added with the Madhyashti, that's a Siddhavasti. Now, another of the Basti which is mentioned by Sushila, which is regularly used now, is the Yapana Basti or Raja Yapana Basti, which we give frequently. The contents are Musta, Patha, Amrita, Tikta, Bala, Rasna, Punarnuaha, ಮಂಜಿಷ್ಟ ಆರಭದ ಉಶೀರ ತ್ರಾಯಮಾಣಾಖ್ಯ ಭೂಕ್ಷುರಾನ್ನ ಪಾಲಿಕಾನ್ ಪಂಚಮೂಲ ಅಲ್ಪಸಹಿತಾನ್ ಮದನಾಷ್ಟಕಂ ಜಲಾಢಕೆ ಪಚೇತ್ ಕ್ವಾತಂ ಪಾದಶೇಷಂ ಪುನಃ ಪಚೇತ್. ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಕ್ವಾಥ. ದೆನ್ ಕ್ಷೀರ ಅರ್ಧಾಡಕ ಸಂಯುಕ್ತಾಂ ಆಕ್ಷೀರಾತ್ ಸುಪರಿಶ್ರುತಂ ಪಾದೇನ ಜಾಂಗಲರಸಃ ತಥಾ ಮಧುಕೃತಂ ಸಮಂ. ಜಾಂಗಲ ಮಾಂಸರಸ ಯೂಶಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ದಿ ಮಾಂಸರಸ ಆಫ್ ಗೋಟ್ಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಅವರ್ ಸೆಟಪ್. And Kshira is added. Madhugrutam samam Shatahva palini esti vatsakai surasanjanihi kashike sendavunshre kalki basti prayoditaha Vatachran meha shofa arsho gulma mutra vibandhanatva visarpa jvara vijbanga rakta pitta vinashanaha balyaha sanjivano vrishyaha chakshusyaha shulanashanaha yapananamayam raja basti mustariko mataha. That mustarika raja yapana basti is what we generally prescribed in majority of the patients who have a significant neurological deficit, atrophy of muscles. It helps a lot in recovery in such patients. Aveksha bheshram buddhya vikaram vikaramit bijena anena shastrajnam kuryat basti shatanapi. So you may have hundreds or innumerable number of varieties of bastis depending upon the dosha condition. With your skill you may modify. ಅಜೀರ್ಣೆ ನ ಪ್ರಯುಂಜಿತ ದಿವಾಸುಪ್ನಂಚ ವರ್ಜಯೇತ್ ಆಹಾರ ಆಚಾರಿಕಂ ಶೇಷಂ ಅನ್ಯತ್ ಕಾಮಂ ಸಮಾಚರೇತ್. The two important precautions during basti administration is it should not be given when the patient has not digested the food properly, and they should not sleep during the daytime. Then all other activities can be done as per the condition of the patient. यस्मात् मधु च तैलं च प्राधान्येन प्रदीयते मांसलिकित्येष विषक्वै बस्तिरुच्यते रथेष्वपि च युक्तेषु हस्तेष्वे चापि कल्पते यस्मान्न प्रतिषिद्धो अयम् अतो युक्तरथस्मृतः बल उपचयवर्णानां यस्मात् व्याधिशतस्य च भवत्यै एतेन सिद्धिस्तु सिद्धबस्तिरतो मतः सुखिनाम् अल्पदोषाणां नित्यं स्निग्धाश्च ये नराः मृदुकोष्ठाश्च ये तेषां विधेयाः मातुतैलिकाः. Now somebody might have asked the question like why the name of Madhutailika or Yuktarata. Sushila gives the reason. Because Madhu and Taila are the predominant contents, that basti is called as Madhutailika. And those patients who are traveling also can be given with the basti, that's called as Yuktarata basti. And because it enhances the strength of the patient and it can be used in hundreds of diseases, it's called as Siddha basti. And in general, Madhutailika should be given in a patient with the Mridukoshtha. Of course, these descriptions may be due to some questions in the class like why it's called as Madhutailika and Yuktarata. Mritutvat padahinatvat akrishna vidhisevanat ekabasti pradhanamcha siddhabastishu ayantrana. The siddhabasti also is named because of the other reason, like because it's a mridu basti, and even it can be given by a single basti also can produce the results. It's called as a siddhabasti. With this, we conclude this chapter. It is Social Sadmitayam Chikitsasthane Niruha Chikitsadam Nama Astatrimshodhyayaha. If there are any questions, we will try to answer and then wind up. Like there are not many questions. Okay, we will close it. Thank you.